You can run, but you can't hide.
This question is to the Minister of Finance. This question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he have confidence in the advice he is receiving from the Treasury? If so, why?
The Honourable
Yes, Mr Speaker, because Treasury gives its best advice based on experience of New Zealand conditions, but of course that doesn't mean the government always agrees with Treasury advice.
How can he have confidence in the advice he is receiving from Treasury when, in the words of the Prime Minister, implementing such advice would cause, quotes, months of industrial action, quotes, and, quotes, huge amounts of anxiety from parents and children, end of quotes?
Well, Mr Speaker, given the choice between Treasury's advice and the Prime Minister's advice, I generally choose the Prime Minister's advice.
That being the case, is it not true that the Treasury 2011 briefing to the incoming Minister of Finance, in particular page 4 in the executive summary on, quotes, improving educational attainment at lower cost, end of quotes, means that he and not the Minister of Education was the main instigator of this horrendously unpopular policy?
Well, Mr Speaker, ministers are under some pressure these days to ensure that they can meet the government's requirement for more public services for less resources. And as the Minister of Finance, it's part of my job to make sure that ministers understand the need to do that. I take my responsibility as part of the collective responsibility for all decisions that are made.
Mr Speaker, I recited the date of the timing of a briefing paper, and in particular its recommendations, which suggest that the Finance Minister and not the Minister of Education was the first recipient of that advice. And I'm asking, does that not make him the main instigator of this policy? He didn't answer that question at all.
Well, the Minister, I believe, did give an answer. It may not have been quite the one the member was looking for, but in his answer, if I remember correctly, he said he was involved in the matter. And he didn't accidentally go on to say whether he was the driver or not, or the first person to push the policy. Instead, he was involved in the decision-making with respect to the policy.
I'm not disputing what you're saying, but he used the word minister, and I wasn't aware of whether he was talking about the Minister of Education or himself. That's the confusing part of that answer.
No, I found his answer not confusing. He was referring to himself, if I remember correctly, his answer. The Honourable David Parks, question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Did the Secretary for the Treasury advise the Minister of Finance of his intention to give a speech promoting smaller class sizes before he gave that speech?
The Honourable
Mr Speaker, I can't recall if he did or he didn't, but he would have given the speech on the basis of the pretty clear evidence that's come out of extensive educational research, and I would expect Treasury to advance policies based on sound evidence.
Mr Speaker, could you instigate an investigation? It's my understanding that all the mics in the House are live and are being broadcast. And there's been interesting things said on the other side, Mr Speaker.
I will order. I suggest members, if that is the case, just keep a little more quiet. It's being dealt with at the moment, but members should be aware that the mics are all live and the interjection will be broadcast. We'll do our best to get that as soon as possible. The Right Honourable Winston Peters. Order. I call the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can I ask the Minister of Finance, did he instruct Secretary to the Treasury to publicly advocate increasing class sizes in the Dominion 27 March 2012 and in the Listener published 24 March 2012? And if so, were the Cabinet and the Prime Minister consulted?
The Honourable Burnage.
Mr Speaker, the answer to the first question is no. The government takes good ideas from anywhere, from the Treasury, from members of the public, from ministers, even from members of the opposition. If it's a good enough idea, we'll have a listen to it and we might even try it out.
How can the Minister have confidence in the Secretary for the Treasury when the Treasury's mismanagement of the Crown Guarantee Scheme caused additional avoidable losses to taxpayers of between $100 and $500 million, which the Secretary for the Treasury and no other arm of government has inquired into to quantify?
Well, Mr Speaker, we disagree with the member. His analysis is based on his misunderstanding of the deposit guarantee scheme.
Question number 4.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Energy and Resources and asks, what new opportunities